Look, a lot of us are on your side, so just let's have some order. If you can't be in order, then get the heck out of here. Okay, the committee will come to order. I'd like to welcome everyone to this afternoon's hearing where we will discuss and examine the Graham-Cassidy Johnson-Heller health care proposal. Given the relatively unique circumstances we're facing with regard to health care generally, and this proposal in particular, the Senate Republican leadership as well as members of the conference have asked for a hearing on this proposal so that we can all get a better sense of how it is intended to work. Toward that end, we have two distinguished panels of witnesses before us today. The first panel will feature statements from two of our distinguished Senate colleagues. If the police would please remove that person, we'd appreciate it. And keep the doors shut. Okay, the second panel will feature another one of our colleagues who is also a member of this committee. We'll hear from a friend and former Senate colleague on the second panel as well. Joining them at the table will be experts and stakeholders who are here to share their views on the proposal from Senators Graham, Cassidy, Heller, and Johnson. The purpose of a hearing is to respectfully discuss ideas and become better informed on particular issues. The purpose of a hearing, as I've said, is to respectfully discuss ideas and become better informed on particular issues. It does not mean that everyone shares the same views and opinions. In fact, I expect that quite a few disagreements will be expressed today, and that's okay with me. I've been in the Senate for 4 decades now, and in that time I've been a part of some very difficult and contentious debates. Early on, I was part of a fierce debate over labor law reform. Over the years, I've participated in some of the most heated Supreme Court hearings in our nation's history. I was here to take part in drafting, debating, and passing the Americans with Disabilities Act, one of my proudest accomplishments. I was around when the debate over the war in Iraq became extremely combative. And of course, I was here when we debated Obamacare before it passed. And I've been here for every debate we've had about it since that time. So I've been through an awful lot of this, and it's nothing new to me. So I understand that there are some strong opinions about this issue. And more importantly, I understand why opinions are so strong. When we talk about health care policy, we're not just talking about a theoretical concept or legislation that impacts a single isolated industry. This topic has a significant impact on the lives of every person in this country in ways that can make or break both their health and their livelihoods. Frankly, because this issue is so personal, everyone has strong feelings on all sides of these issues. If we could shut that door and keep it shut, I'd appreciate it. To members of the committee, to those in the audience today, and to any person who may watch or read about today's hearing at some point in the future, let me say this. I respect your opinions on these issues, but while I wish that expressions of goodwill could on their own fix our nation's problems, that is just not the case. We have to do the work, and on these issues, the work is particularly hard. Today, we're here to discuss the most recent health care proposal drafted by some of our colleagues, and I commend them for their efforts and their willingness to put forward ideas to address these very difficult problems. My hope is that we can spend our time today questioning our witnesses about substance and policy, not on scoring political points, particularly when we have distinguished colleagues and a former colleague at the witness table. I know that for both sides of this debate, passionate demonstrations and righteous indignation, particularly when there are cameras in the room, make good fodder for Twitter and TV commercials, especially when the subject is health care. Our committee is generally regarded as being above such shenanigans, though we haven't been entirely immune to these types of theatrics in the past. For today, let me just say this. If the hearing is going to devolve into a sideshow or a forum simply for putting partisan points on the board, there's absolutely no reason for us to be here. I won't hesitate to adjourn the hearing if it gets to that point. It hasn't gotten there yet, but it's close. I'm saying this for the benefit of my colleagues on the committee and everyone in the audience. Let's have a civil discussion. I have no objection to having a spirited debate on these issues. My gosh, I was the author of the Americans with Disabilities Act, so I have very deep feelings about these issues. And I think most here on this committee have deep feelings as well. My hope is that in the end, our efforts will generate more light and less heat than we've seen in the most recent episodes of the healthcare debate. If we can't have that, we should all be spending our time on something more productive. So with that, and those few remarks, I now turn to our ranking member, Senator Wyden, for his remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I have an opening statement, and then at the conclusion of that, would like to bring up several points about the process, and I understand we've agreed to that.
That'd be fine.
Colleagues, nobody has got to buy a lemon just because it's the last car on the lot. This Trumpcare bill is a health care lemon, a disaster in the making. The fact that it's the last Republican repeal bill standing doesn't make it okay. It's going to be a nightmare for tens of millions of Americans, and it makes a mockery of the president's promise of better insurance for everybody at lower costs. The bill's sponsors aren't even waiting for the official facts and figures from the independent scorekeepers. Version after version of this bill is floating around, and the pork parade is up and running. The process that has brought this Trumpcare bill to the brink of passage would be laughable if the well-being of tens of millions of Americans wasn't in the balance. Now, I want to blow the whistle on a few key points at the outset. First off, the American people do not want this bill. In the last few days, the committee has received more than 25,000 comments from people who want it stopped. As with every other version of Trumpcare, this proposal is about as popular as prolonged root canal work. There is one group cheering the bill on, the right-wing Republican donor class. The big donors want the entire Affordable Care Act thrown in the trash, and they've wanted it from the beginning. But it didn't work, since it turns out that it's bad policy to take health coverage away from tens of millions of Americans and raise costs for virtually everybody else. So the new strategy is essentially repeal by 1,000 cuts. It would be national repeal, and it would be state-by-state repeal. The heart of this bill is a scheme that punishes the states that have worked hard to build strong private markets and make health care more affordable. It rewards the states where lawmakers have sat on their hands, where they've spent years loudly rejecting the opportunity to improve the lives of millions of the people they serve. But that's not a proposition that gets much support. So instead, the committee today is going to hear a lot of hocus pocus about the word flexibility. The story goes it's flexibility for the states, more control at the local level, and somehow everybody by osmosis is going to be better off. But let's be upfront about what it means in practice. The real flexibility created by the bill is the option for states to do worse, so that Americans are forced to pay more for less care. Now, off the top, this version of Trumpcare guts funding for health care in the new block grants. Then governors and state legislators build new health insurance systems, and they're basically going to have to make Hunger Games choices, deciding which vulnerable people get care and which don't. The ironclad, loophole-free, guaranteed protection for those with pre-existing conditions will be gone. The bill sponsors will tell you otherwise, but colleagues, the facts are the facts. The guaranteed protection that nobody will be gouged due to a catastrophic illness like cancer will be gone. That's because the bill reopens the door to annual and lifetime limits on care. The guarantee of essential benefits, gone. That means prescription drug coverage is on the chopping block. Maternity care on the chopping block. Mental health and substance abuse treatment on the chopping block. And a whole lot more. The guarantee that nobody could be charged higher premiums because of their health status or their job, also gone. Bottom line, this bill is an all-out assault on vital consumer protection. It revives some of the worst insurance company abuses that were banned under the Affordable Care Act, and it's going to make the health care that many people need unaffordable. No, it does not adequately protect people with pre-existing conditions. What the bill does include are a few toothless lines about affordability and access. That's supposed to be protection, real protection for people with pre-existing conditions. But there's no enforcement mechanism, no tough standards, no real definitions. And the watered-down protections states put together for new insurance systems then can get a rubber stamp from Team Trump. Once again, in the Trumpcare bill, there's an attack on women's health. Hundreds of thousands of women are going to lose the right to see the doctor of their choice. That's what you get when you defund Planned Parenthood. The traditional Medicaid program, a lifeline for people with disabilities, seniors and kids, and pregnant women. Draconian cuts. An aging baby boomer who suffered a stroke might not get the help they need. The guarantee of nursing home care won't be there. The community-based program that offers care to people at home where they're most comfortable could disappear. Special education programs funded by Medicaid for vulnerable kids could be put in jeopardy. A few closing points, Mr. Chairman. The process that has led to this moment has been an abomination. And we've just seen, colleagues, some of the frustration that our people have at closed-door government that locks Americans out of the democratic process. This just isn't serious. It's really a talking point today. It's a scheme to let senators go home to fearful constituents and offer assurances, false assurances, that this bill got a fair examination and went through the regular order. It's not true. Senate Republicans haven't gotten answers to the most basic questions about the real-world effects of the bill. How many people are going to lose coverage? By how much are premiums going to increase? Will the health care market survive next year? The independent scorekeepers at the budget office say it's going to be several weeks before they can put forward estimates of coverage and cost. And their job gets tougher because this bill just changes by the hour as the majority throws around in the scramble for votes. Why the rush job? It's because the coach turns back into a pumpkin at the end of the month. That's when the reconciliation fast track to pass the partisan bill expires. Now, we want to be clear. On this side, we think we ought to be working on bipartisan priorities. We've got a good bill for kids, children's health insurance plan, 9 million kids. The funding for that program, colleagues, runs out in just a few days at the end of the month. We'd like to be working on that in a bipartisan way, and we'd like to be working on stabilizing the private insurance markets. I heard about that this weekend at town hall meetings in Central Oregon. That's what we want to work on. We want to do it in a bipartisan way with our sister Senate committee. Instead, what's on offer is this Trumpcare bill that's going to trigger a health care disaster, a death spiral in the insurance markets as tax credits and cost-sharing payments go away and healthy people flee and costs go into the stratosphere. Democrats on this side of the dais want to continue to do everything, one, to stop this dreadful proposal from becoming law, and two, to get down to the serious, heavy lifting of passing bipartisan legislation for kids, number one, and for adults in the individual insurance market. Now, with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to just wrap up with a few quick points about the procedure for this hearing. This is per our agreement. First, Mr. Chairman, I think you know that we're very disappointed in the response to our request to hold this hearing in a larger room that could accommodate more members of the public. I'd ask unanimous consent that a letter outlining this request be included in the record.
Without objection.
This is the first and only hearing that will be held regarding a bill affecting more than 320 million Americans and 1/6 of our economy. As we just saw, there is enormous public interest. We've seen hundreds of people today, many in wheelchairs, lined up in the hall, hoping to get into the hearing. However, after you take account of the committee members, staff, witnesses, and members of the press, the room we're in only has space for about 30 members of the public. 30 for a hearing of this import. Normally, when Congress holds hearings that attract such enormous public attention, we have our hearings in large hearing rooms, the largest hearing rooms, to accommodate hundreds of audience members. My understanding is those rooms are available today. So the question I really have is, why not move the hearing there so more people can attend? Otherwise, it sends yet one more signal that the majority wants to keep the bill under wraps rather than opening up the process to the American people. Finally, Mr. Chairman, I understand that Senator Cassidy wants to participate in this hearing both as a witness, providing testimony, and as a member of the committee, asking questions of the same witness panel he is part of. I expect we're going to hear a lot today from Senator Cassidy about flexibility. I gather he's a big fan of flexibility. He appreciates flexibility so much he wants to apply it to himself. However, to my mind, dashing back and forth between the witness table and the dais is not proper decorum for a hearing. So I would just like to make clear, Mr. Chairman, because my understanding with respect to the rules is I have to leave it at that. I sure think it's more appropriate that Senator Cassidy wears one hat during this hearing rather than two. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Senator. I think Senator Cassidy ought to be able to do what he wants to do, but I'll make sure he doesn't ask questions of himself.
Interesting.
Well, maybe I better withdraw that. Appreciate your kind and good remarks. Now, because of the high interest and the importance of this hearing, an overflow room has already been secured. Not to mention it will be televised on C-SPAN and available for live streaming on the Senate Finance Committee website. To my colleagues' complaints about the process for setting up this hearing, I'll just say that many senators have expressed a desire to examine details of the proposal we're discussing today. Today's hearing is being held to allow members on both sides to delve deeper into the policy and gain a better understanding of what our colleagues' proposal hopes to achieve. I do not expect this hearing to go on forever, but we'll give certainly good opportunity. Now, I would like to welcome each of our witnesses to our hearing today. To start off on the first panel, we will hear from our good friends and fellow senators, the senior senator from South Carolina, Lindsey Graham, who is the co-author of this bill, and the junior senator from Hawaii, Mazie Hirono, for opening remarks. We are grateful to have such passionate and wonderful senators join us today to share their views. Senator Graham, will you please share with us your remarks, and then we'll go to Senator Hirono.